I would ask everyone to stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's invocation is being offered by Council Member Josh Stites.
He's here.
He's in the building, but not in the room. May I lead us in prayer?
Go right ahead.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today. Watch us as we step forward into this great and glorious decision that we face before us tonight. Lead us to do what your will would be. Protect all of our soldiers that are overseas and bring them home to us. Watch over every person in this city and everyone here at this meeting tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Without objection, we'll suspend the calling of the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of the members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of our meeting from June the 12th? A second? Without objection, the minutes will stand approved as written. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
There are no messages.
Thank you. We have two presentations this evening before we begin with our regular agenda. The first one is Councilmember Pridemore.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Several weeks ago, this council passed an ordinance honoring Tom Alvin Dozier by naming the Metropolitan Police Department gun range facility in his honor. Council Lady Langster, Councilman Harrison, whose district the gun range is located in, Councilman Pardue, myself, and all members of the Metro Council are honored to take this moment to officially present this ordinance, officially naming the police gun range to Major Dozier's family and friends. With us tonight is Major Dozier's family. Sitting here in the front row, his wife Pauline Dozier, his sons Tom Jr. and wife Rita, Judge Steve Dozier, grandchildren Anna Lee Cawthorn and husband Wes, Olivia and Phoebe. Also present with us tonight is Chief Casey, who Major Dozier spent most of his career working under and for and with. And it's an honor to have him here with us tonight. Chief Anderson is also here with us. Not only is he representing the police department, but worked with Major Dozier and become a very close friend. Retired Lieutenant Reed Majors, who worked under Major Dozier and also a very close friend. And also Vice Chairman of the Metro Parks and Recreation Board, Stan Fossick, and his wife Carol, who also worked with Major Dozier. And filling in for representing the Fraternal Order of Police is Sergeant Danny Hale. What I'd like to do, Judge Dozier, we'll just hand that to him. I'd like to read what the ordinance states. Whereas Thomas Alvin Dozier Sr. served the citizens of Nashville as a police officer for 50 years, and whereas Thomas Alvin Dozier Sr. began his law enforcement career in 1953 as a patrolman in the Nashville Police Department, and after steadily rising through the ranks, was promoted to the rank of major in the Metropolitan Police Department in 1990. And whereas for much of his MNPD career, Major Dozier was an instructor at the police academy. And whereas Major Dozier also served as a director of training, head of firearms, and was a SWAT team commander. And whereas the Metropolitan Gun Range located at 2715 Tucker Road was constructed approximately in 1975 after being housed inside the former police headquarters building. And whereas Major Dozier was instrumental in the construction of the outdoor gun range and served as the supervisor of the gun range for many years, which ensured its continued operation and success. Whereas Major Dozier retired from the police department on January 1, 2004, and passed away August 2, 2011, at the age of 81. Now therefore be it enacted by the Council of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County that the new Metropolitan Gun Range located at 2715 Tucker Road is hereby named the Major Tom Dozier Gun Range. Dear family and friends and all retired and active police personnel, on behalf of the Metropolitan Council, we would like to make this presentation.
You sure you want to ask a judge to speak? Yes. Okay. Just briefly, I know you got some major issues on the agenda tonight, but Vice Mayor, neighbors, all council members, the council, especially the sponsors here, the family's greatly honored. My dad loved this city and especially the police department, Chief Anderson, Chief Casey, and kept every photo of the chiefs in his office that he ever served under, but really loved this town and the police department and would be greatly honored to this tribute. So thank you very much.
The next presentation is by Council Member Josh Stites.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor and members of the council. As many of you saw coming into the chambers tonight, there was a birthday cake outside, and I hope you took the time to partake since we may be here a while tonight. Tonight we have a resolution to honor the 75th birthday of the Nashville International Airport, and just the abbreviated version of the resolution that we passed says that whereas for the 75 years, the Nashville International Airport has played a vital role in connecting Nashville to the world and vice versa. Whereas BNA and its 280 employees consistently deliver the Nashville Airport's experience, serving as great airports for our passengers, business partners, and employees. And whereas BNA facilities have a beat and rhythm and exemplify its passion for customer service while being unique and vibrant places through which to travel. And whereas the Nashville International Airport has honored its responsibility as the front door to our city, and has served as a vital economic engine for the Middle Tennessee region, enabling both tourism and business operations. We have, it truly is an economic engine, fortunate to have it in total in District 13. And those who fly often and are in there frequently, you know what a class operation it is. And now that they have a Blue Coast burrito, it's even better. But we want to hear just a few words from the president and CEO of the Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority, Mr. Raul Regalado. Many of you may remember we have a resolution that has been filed honoring Raul, who will be retiring actually June 30th of this year. I don't think that resolution was a surprise. I hope it's not. But I'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, Councilmember Stites. Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council, certainly thank you for this recognition of the anniversary of Nashville International Airport, your airport. We appreciate your support over these years. I'm not sure many of you have been here 75 years on the council, but certainly for the years that you've been there. And during the past 11 years that I've been head of the Airport Authority, I appreciate your support. We could not have accomplished what we have done without that. I would hope that you would continue to support the airport and its new leadership. My successor, Rob Wigington, has been named and is poised to take over effective July the 1st. I wish you well. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you, and fly often. Thank you very much.
Before we begin with our agenda this evening, I would like to ask for everyone in the chamber, in the gallery, to find a seat. If you cannot find a seat, you will need to move to the mezzanine. We're at bills on public hearing. The first one is RS 2012-300, exempts Tzatziki's Mediterranean Cafe located at 2190 Bandywood Drive from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd move to open the public hearing, please.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing none on either side, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Public Safety, Beer and Regulated Beverages Committee approved 4-0.
Thank you. Councilman McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now at the items on our consent agenda. Those are RS 2012-301 through 315. Are there any of those that need to be pulled? Seeing none, RS 2012-301 approves an amendment to a grant from the Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance to the Mayor's Office of Environment and Sustainability for residential energy efficiency building retrofits. RS 2012-302 approves a grant from the State Department of Agriculture to the Metro Board of Health for retail food store inspection, reporting, and enforcement. RS 2012-303 approves an amendment to a grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to the Metro Board of Health for collection of data on ambient air concentrations. RS 2012-304 approves an amendment to a grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to the Metro Board of Health to achieve established ambient air standards. RS 2012-305 appropriates funds from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metro Action Commission to fund a comprehensive child development program. RS 2012-306 approves a grant between the Metro Board of Parks and Recreation and the Metro Development and Housing Agency for the Swim Youth Enrichment Program. RS 2012-307 approves a grant between the Metro Board of Parks and Recreation and the Metro Development and Housing Agency for Kirkpatrick Park Summer Enrichment Program. RS 2012-308 approves amendments to 3 agreements between Metro government and the State Department of Environment and Conservation regarding the maintenance of closed solid waste facilities. RS 2012-309 approves a supplemental agreement between the CSX Transportation, Inc. and the Department of Water and Sewage Services to construct and maintain water lines in the railroad right-of-way at the intersection of Herman Street and 17th Avenue North. RS 2012-310 approves an amendment between the State Department of Transportation and Metro Public Works for crosswalks and pedestrian signals at 4 Harding Place intersections. RS 2012-311 approves an amendment to an agreement between the State Department of Transportation and Metro Public Works for the construction of sidewalks and bikeway enhancements along Harding Place from Timber Hill Drive to Danby Drive. RS 2012-312 approves a contract between Metro Government and Election Systems and Software LLC for the lease of voting equipment to be used by the Davidson County Election Commission. RS 2012-313 approves the election of notaries public for Davidson County. RS 2012-314 authorizes Premier Parking of Tennessee LLC to install, construct, and maintain an aerial encroachment at 421 Church Street for Modern Trousseau. RS 2012-315 authorizes Lifeway Christian Resources to install, construct, and maintain an aerial encroachment at One Lifeway Place. We will need the following committee reports. Councilmember McGuire for Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance Committee voted to approve all items that appeared before it on the consent agenda, 15-4, none against.
Thank you. Health, Hospitals, and Social Services. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Health, Hospital, and Social Service voted to approve unanimously Resolution 2012-303, 304, and 305 with a vote of 3-0.
Thank you. Councilmember Jernigan, Parks, Libraries, Recreation, and Public Entertainment.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. RS 2012-306 and 307, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Claiborne, Planning, Zoning, and Historical.
Planning, Zoning, and the Historic Committee voted to approve RS 2012-314 and 315 by a vote of 8-0 against.
Thank you. Public Works, Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works approve Resolution 308, 309, 310, 311, 314, and 315, all by a margin of 10-0 against.
Thank you. Rules, Confirmations, and Public Elections, Councilmember Stein.
Rules and Confirmations approve 312 and 313, 9-4, and none against, and I move approval of the consent agenda.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at RS 2012-245, provides additional compensation for the Davidson County Criminal Court Clerk in an amount equal to 10% of his base compensation. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to approve 10-4, 2 against, 1 not voting, and I would move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are going to move RS 2012-273, 274, and 275 to the heel of the agenda. We are now at RS 2012-276, determines to issuance of $297,660,000 in GSD general obligation bonds to provide funding for various projects contained in the Mayor's 2012-2013 capital spending plan. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to approve as amended, 16-4, none against, and I would move approval.
Have a motion and a second. Is it your amendment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Councilmember Evans.
The amendment clarifies some language with respect to schools and their use of IT, for those of you who were following that during the budget hearing. And after some discussions last night, schools asked so that we would all be on the same page for me to just clarify a couple of things, and we are hopefully will be on the same page now. The amendment does not exclude the purchase of computers or software for principals, counselors, librarians. It does not exclude the purchase of hardware or software for the school library system, for the bus routing system, for the school cafeteria, to manage the asset inventory system. The amendment's sole purpose is to support efforts of collaboration between our IT, human resources departments, and others with schools, and that's what we're trying to do instead of building our own silos for technology. So with that, I'd ask for your support of the amendment.
We have a motion on the amendment. Is there a second? Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd move as amended.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on introduction and first reading. Is there a motion for their approval? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on second reading. BL 2012-161 amends the Metro Code to require all new employees of Metro government to be residents of Davidson County. Councilmember Tiger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee report, please.
Thank you.
Committee voted 0 for 3 against.
Councilman Tiger.
I would move approval, and there is an amendment that needs to be offered.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman.
The amendment clarifies that the Nashville Career Advancement Center, Training Center, is that the right name, John? Career Advancement Center, which services a 9-county area in Middle Tennessee and obviously has offices and employees in each of those counties or different locations, would be exempted from this bill.
We have a motion on the amendment. We have a second. Seeing no discussion on the amendment, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Councilman.
I would move approval as amended.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank you. There was also a major discussion about whether an amendment was needed to clarify the status of existing employees. And John, your interpretation is that the bill as written that would just impact new employees hired after a certain date would take care of that and that no amendment is necessary.
That's correct.
All right, so just to make this point clear, existing employees of Metro government would have the ability, if they so chose, to, at any point of their career with government, to move out of the county if they so chose. Ladies and gentlemen of the Council, Vice Mayor, we already place restrictions for our jobs with Metro government in place. We require certain physical, educational skills, and this would just add the requirement that new employees of Metro government establish residency within this county within 90 days of employment. This is just one more requirement in place. Up to 1994, we required this, and I was part of the council and actually voted to allow employees to live anywhere they so chose. And I thought that was a good thing at the time, but I think that over time, it has shown that that has created problems. Now, almost 1/3 of our employees live outside of Davidson County. And while I understand that placing a restriction on where you should have to live is troublesome to some, I would just say that jobs in Metro government, whether they be police or fire, a secretary, a school worker, wherever they might be, are cherished positions. We had a department come before us recently that advertised that for an IT opening, they had 115 applications for one position. So it's my contention is that these jobs are that good and people should want to live in Metro, and it is right and proper to ask them to live in Metro if we're going to give you or offer one of these positions to you. The bill also contains waivers that if you have a hardship and need to move out of county to care for an ailing parent or another type situation, that you have the ability to request a waiver. And then most importantly, the issue about can we attract enough qualified employees to fill certain positions. And the police were very worried about this. They were the only department that spoke up, so I'm just going to sort of concentrate on that. The bill also gives the Civil Service Commission, Metro HR, the department head, if there is not a qualified person or a person whose technical skills are lacking that lives out of this county, to request a waiver. So in this economy with the number of people that are begging for jobs, that want jobs, I think it is appropriate to ask them to live in the county. These are the most valuable folks to live in our communities. Metro government employees, we saw it time and time again during the flood and other crises, people stepping forward and of all types. But certainly if you're invested in our community and you have some skin in the game, these are the type folks that I want living in my neighborhood. So I think this is certainly the time and the position to review this issue, and I think it's the right thing to do at this time, and I would appreciate your approval.
Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Perdue.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Charlie, my main problem with this is the same as it was in the committee. From what we understood, there's more to this bill that's coming. And I'd like to ask for a deferral till we could all see all of the bill. Thank you.
Councilmember Garrett.
Kind of hard to speak into that, isn't it, Mr.? It's rare, Madam Vice Mayor, that my Vanderbilt graduate friend over here and I disagree on some things, but I was here in '94 when we did this as well. I kind of see this as a step backwards. Some of you hear me talk about it, it's the China Wall syndrome, where we talk about our county and don't think about anybody else. John, are there any other counties around us or any other that require their employees to live in their counties?
The only one I'm aware of in Tennessee is Memphis, and it requires that employees be residents of Shelby County.
Of the county, Memphis. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you straight up, I don't want to be like Memphis. I spent 20 years in the legislature, and I didn't want to be like Memphis up there either. Maybe that's all I need to say. In '94, some of you may remember that part of the reasons we wondered why anybody wanted to do this is that to some extent I'll just get the union. We never could understand why the unions would agree to allow the individuals to live outside the county, because it actually made the unions more powerful, at least everybody thought back then, if you required everybody to live in the county because they all voted. And you know, we couldn't understand why the unions gave up that. Well, the bottom line, and then I've had folks to ask me and say, well, is this a pro-union vote or is this an anti-union vote? I guess it's a pro-union vote if you vote to make everybody live in the county, because it would make the union stronger. It did back then. But anyway, I think it's a step backwards. I think we're back into this China Wall syndrome. I don't think that's the way this county ought to operate. At the same time, we've got people that live in this county that work in governments outside this county as well and work in the other counties, and I just don't think that's the direction we want to go in. Thank you.
Councilmember Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Unlike Councilman Garrett, Councilman Tiger and I have not agreed on a whole lot, but we agreed today on this particular bill. I believe that no one has been a stronger supporter of Metro employees than myself. Others have been at the level that I've been in support of Metro employees, but I don't believe that anyone has supported Metro employees more than me, nor the unions that represent our Metro employees. No one has supported the labor groups that represent the employees more than myself. But I feel that today, after speaking with police officers and firefighters who actually live in Davidson County, I shared this with Councilman Tiger, that I had a meeting that I was called by 4 police officers. I thought that I didn't know what they were going to say. I expected that they probably wouldn't support it. And they called me and they said, to a person, we live in Davidson County. We support your bill because we believe that all police officers who are hired by Metro, serve Metro, being paid by Metro, by our property tax payers, should live in Nashville, should be proud to live in Davidson County. And I agree. I met with firefighters who live here in Davidson County. They also agreed that they don't like it that half of the firefighters live outside the county. I believe if the police officers are recruiting, that you have a 90-day window. If someone who lives out of the county says, I want to be a police officer for Metro government, they have 90 days to get a residency here in Davidson County. I think that is sufficient. I believe stating that we can't recruit people because they live outside the county. You have 90 days from the time that you get offered the job to move into Davidson County. What a wonderful place to live. Now, I don't have to begrudge Memphis because I love Nashville. I just love Nashville. And I believe that if you're asking us to raise property taxes, to give raises to Metro employees, you should live in Davidson County with the rest of us who are having our taxes raised. And I just believe that's the equitable thing to do. I ask that you support this. Thank you.
Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. As the chair of the Personnel Committee, this came before us earlier, and we had quite a long conversation about this. And as I mentioned, the committee did vote 0 for and 3 against. And I just wanted to take a moment and explain, I think, some of the conversation that occurred. Part of it had to do with the fact that when you've got an EMT or a firefighter or a police officer, you want the best candidate. And that candidate might live in Sumner County. That candidate might live in Rutherford County. And at the end of the day, I want the person that's going to be working on me to be the most qualified and the best qualified. And that seemed to be a lot of the conversation. There also seemed to be, one of my colleagues just pointed out that that a 90-day window is a pretty large window to come and move into Davidson County. Well, actually, in this housing market, it's kind of hard to sell houses. So I'm not sure that that's actually something that if somebody who lived in Rutherford County could make that move. And the last thing is, do we want Rutherford County and Sumner County and Williamson County to draw a line around their communities and say, if you live here, you have to work here and you can't go into Davidson County? And I don't think so. We're a regional area and we need to make sure that we are attracting and keeping the best talent. I want people to be in Davidson County because they want to be, not because we forced them to be. So, Councilman, I'm going to have to vote against it. Thanks.
Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. John, I wanted to ask you, Metro Police Department, they often recruit outside of the state of Tennessee. How would this ordinance affect that activity if it passed?
It would be built into the job qualifications that in order to be hired, you agree that you will move to Davidson County within 90 days. So it would just be one of the minimum job qualifications.
You don't think that they might curtail some of the recruiting outside the state due to this ordinance?
That would be for the police department to answer. It would not prohibit them from recruiting outside Nashville. It would just be a job requirement that if hired, they would have to move here.
I understand, because oftentimes recruitment, they go to college campuses, university campuses here in Davidson County, and a lot of students are from outside of Davidson County attending our universities and colleges. And I just think this, I was in the council in '94 when this passed. I just think this is a bad step to take right now, and I would ask you to vote against it. Thank you.
Councilmember Weiner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. First of all, the operative phrase is that I am from Memphis, not in Memphis. Secondly, I was on the committee, and I was one of the ones that co-sponsored this legislation because I think that being so proud of Nashville, proud of our residents, supportive of our residents, I think we've got quite capable folks here within Davidson County who can stand up and rise to the positions that we have available. Having said that, I also voted against my own bill, and here's why. There were enough good questions, good substantive questions that were brought up during the meeting that I think deferring this to give it a little bit more time to study it is certainly appropriate. And so I would support the opportunity to defer it so that we can look a little bit deeper at some of the questions that were raised.
Is that a motion?
Didn't you already, I thought it was already moved. So yes, it's a motion.
A motion to defer.
To defer. One meeting.
Or
one meeting.
We have a motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion to defer? Please raise your hand since I already have several in the queue. Seeing none, all in favor of a one-meeting deferral, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. One meeting deferral passes. Next is BL 2012-162, amends the Metro Code pertaining to health insurance benefits for members of the Metro Council. Councilmember Todd.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Personnel Committee voted to defer by rule.
Thank you. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to disapprove, 2 for, 3 against, 10 not voting.
Thank you. Councilmember Todd.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would move to defer this legislation one meeting and re-refer back to the Budget and Finance Committee, and I would like to make a brief comment about it as well.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman.
Thank you. As we consider raising taxes tonight, I think we have a moral duty as citizens to make sure that government is run as efficiently as possible. I encourage those of you who didn't see Gail Kerr's article in the Tennessean to go back and read it online. I think she makes a really compelling argument that this is a practice that we ought to get rid of. Everyone on the council should also have received a copy of the final report from the Study and Formulating Committee. This is a great group of folks. It's Gerald Nicely. It was chaired by Dorothy Shelberry. Betty Nixon was on the committee. It's a great group of folks, and they've got some serious recommendations on how we can make employee benefits more efficient. And I'm going to go back and study that and maybe incorporate some of that into this legislation. But I think we have a duty to look at all of this, especially in this environment. And I would encourage you all to go back and study those materials also. With that, I would renew my motion to defer one meeting and refer back to Budget and Finance.
Seeing no more discussion on the deferral motion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion to defer and redefer to Budget and Finance passes. BL 2012-164 approves an agreement with Volunteer State Community College and the Metro Nashville Fire Department's EMS Office and Emergency Ambulance and Rescue Service for students enrolled in the Emergency Medical Technician programs. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, committee report.
It's you.
Public Safety, Beer and Regulated Beverages Committee approved 4-0. And with that, I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-165 approves an agreement between Metro Government and the Nashville Soccer LLC for the lease of premises at Eazell Park. Councilmember Dominic.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee voted 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember Jernigan.
Parks, Library, Rec, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to approve, 15-4, none against.
Councilmember Dominic.
And with that, I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-166 approves an agreement between Metro Government and Southern Land Company to repair a public combined sewer main and install one public manhole near 2300 Elliston Place. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Councilman Hunt.
Public Works approved, 10-4-0 against.
Councilmember McGuire.
Budget and Finance voted to approve, 15-4, none against.
Councilmember Langster.
Move for approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-167 approves an agreement between Metro Government and 40th Avenue Church of Christ for construction of a water main within the 40th Avenue North right-of-way from Charlotte Avenue to Katherine Johnson Parkway. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works approved, 10-4-0 against.
Councilmember McGuire.
Budget and Finance voted to approve, 15-4, none against.
Councilmember Langster.
Move for approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-168 amends the official street and alley acceptance and maintenance map by abandoning a portion of Elm Hill Pike right-of-way. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee voted to approve, 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember Harrison.
Traffic and Parking Committee approved, 6-4-0 against.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works Committee approved, 10-4-0 against.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-169 amends the official street and alley acceptance and maintenance map by abandoning a portion of Pittman Place and Rosemont Avenue right-of-way and easements. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee voted 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember Harrison.
Traffic and Parking Committee approved 6-4 and 0 against.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works approved 10-4-0 against.
Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-170 amends the official street and alley acceptance and maintenance map by changing the name of a portion of Terrace Avenue to Summit Avenue. Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee voted 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works Committee deferred by rule 10-4-0 against.
Councilmember Harrison.
Traffic and Parking Committee approved 7-4 and 0 against, and I ask for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Was it deferred? 170.
17 or 107?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-171 amends the official street and alley and acceptance and maintenance map by abandoning a portion of Jefferson Street right-of-way. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee voted 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember Harrison.
Traffic and Parking Committee approved 7-4 and 0 against.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works approved 10-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you. Move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2012-172, amends the official street and alley acceptance and maintenance map by abandoning a portion of unnumbered alley right-of-way and easements. Councilmember Scott Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee voted 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember Harrison.
Traffic and Parking voted to approve 7-4 and 0 against.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works approved 10-4-0 against.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now at bills on third reading. The first one is BL 2012-99, amends .44 acres of the SP District for the previously approved H&M Motors Specific Plan District located at 1525 4th Avenue South to permit auto sales new, auto sales used, auto service, and all uses permitted by MULA zoning, and to remove the condition for a sidewalk along Mallory Lane. Councilmember Moore.
Committee report, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee voted to defer indefinitely at the sponsor's request, 8-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore.
Vice Mayor, I would like to withdraw my motion to defer indefinitely to a one-meeting deferral.
I have a motion and a second for a one-meeting deferral. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
And I just have a brief explanation.
Yes,
After
ma'am.
talking with the applicant again, hopefully we can get this resolved finally with this one meeting deferral. And I thank you for your approval.
And you have it. Thank you. Next is BL 2012-107, amends the Metro Code to require replacement sign panels in multi-tenant developments to be consistent with other signage on the property. Councilmember Johnson.
Committee report.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee voted to defer indefinitely at the sponsor's request, 8-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to defer indefinitely.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of indefinite deferral, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Just to remind everyone in the chamber to please find a seat or please move to the mezzanine. BL 2012-143 changes .91 acres from R6 to SP District for properties located at 200, 202, 204, and 206 Ocola Avenue to permit all uses of the OL District with certain exceptions. Councilmember Baker.
Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic voted to approve 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember Baker.
Move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-151 changes 61.23 acres from RS40 to SP zoning for property located at 5570 Granny White Pike to permit up to 57 residential units. Councilmember Todd.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic voted to defer by rule, 8-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Todd.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would move to defer this until the second meeting in July.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-152 changes .17 acres from R10 to CN zoning for property located at 1119 Merrill Avenue. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee voted to approve 8-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're going to go ahead and take BL 2012-163. It authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the lawsuit against XO Communication Services, LLC, for unpaid right-of-way franchise fees. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe all committees having reported, I would move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Before we go on to our next bill, I've asked Mr. Cooper to explain a little bit of what the process is.
Okay, this is the operating budget ordinance. The Budget and Finance Committee has recommended a substitute budget that was put forth by the chair. The chair will move the substitute budget ordinance when called on. There will then be there can be some discussion and then a vote on whether to accept that substitute. Once the substitute is accepted, it takes the place of the mayor's budget and becomes the budget that is being considered by the council. At that point, it is amendable, and we have 7 amendments that were offered at the Budget and Finance Committee. Those amendments can be offered and debated individually, and then if the bill is accepted and if any amendments are added, it will be voted on again as substituted.
Thank you. It is BL 2012-154, adopts the operating budget of the Metropolitan Government for fiscal year 2012-2013. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe that there is a substitute that I would move at this time.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the substitute?
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, it is with great humility that I submit to you this evening my substitute budget for your approval. While I have absolutely no doubt that the job of Budget and Finance Chair could have fallen upon a much abler member in this council, I did try to fulfill the duties of the chairmanship to the best of my abilities. Without a doubt, every step along the way that I looked at this budget for the next fiscal year, I had the goal of lessening the burden on the taxpayer as much as I possibly could. Because of that, I know that many in this council and in Nashville anticipated my substitute would reflect some kind of reduction in the mayor's proposed tax levy of 53 cents. Admittedly, my first revisions of the mayor's proposed budget were an attempt at reducing the levy outright. Although it became clear very early on that any notions I had of reducing the levy by much more than a nickel were frankly ill-fated. But the more that I thought about the coming fiscal years for Metro and the more I contemplated the uncertainty of those years, the more I thought that the best and most responsible fiscal move we can make for this city would be to place as much money as we possibly could into reserves. I know that this is not the most popular thing to do, nor is it the most exciting, but without a doubt, it is the smartest and most practical thing to do. Some in this council would indeed prefer that we simply reduce the levy. Once I had identified the budget reductions that I wanted to make, which I determined to be $8.6 million, I did seriously consider writing a budget that reduced the levy by what would be the equivalent of 4.5 cents. But then I thought long and hard about what that would mean to the average taxpayer. To illustrate my thought process, I did some simple calculations. If you calculate the difference between a 48.5-cent increase and a 53-cent increase, on a $300,000 house, the taxpayer would be paying $2.81 less a month in property taxes with a 4.5-cent reduction from the 53-cent levy. On a $145,000 house, which is the median housing price in Davidson County, they would be paying $1.36 less a month. While I do know that that is a significant amount of money to some, it is my opinion that the taxpayer is better served by our putting this money away in reserves, as there are so many questions unanswered going into the coming fiscal years. We were repeatedly told by anti-tax increase proponents that the counties that surround us have lower tax rates. And we were further told that if we increased our property tax rate, we would see a mass exodus of citizens going elsewhere. Without a doubt, some areas that surround us have lower property tax rates. Let's take Williamson County, for example. The city of Brentwood has a property tax rate of $2.70 versus our current rate of $4.13, or the proposed rate of $4.66. Do you know what the median home price is in Williamson County? It's $343,000. That is $200,000 more than our median home price in Davidson County. Of course, the tax rate will be lower in Williamson County when their property values are over double what they are here in Davidson County. Simple mathematics tells you that the higher your housing values, the lower your tax rate can be. We again have not seen a property tax increase in this city in 7 years. And comparatively, our property tax rate is lower than other major cities in the state like Memphis, Chattanooga, and Knoxville. So what, in essence, does my budget plan accomplish? First, I believe it proves to the taxpayers that we are indeed being good stewards of the taxpayers' money because we are making budgetary reductions from the mayor's proposed budget. We were asked by the public to reduce spending, and I believe in this budget we have done so. While some might say there is not enough in reductions, I can stand here and honestly tell you that I have been through this budget backwards and forwards, and I do not believe we can make any more reductions without it being truly detrimental to the services we provide as a city. Second, this budget is a step towards a government that is holding departments more accountable for their spending. As an example of that in this budget is we are taking the proposed subsidies for the fairgrounds, the farmers market, and the municipal auditorium as proposed in the mayor's budget and putting them into reserves. This will accomplish two things. First, it will send a message that the council does not want to continue to incentivize these enterprises to underperform, but rather beseeches them to get their operations back on track. Second, it still provides for the opportunity for these organizations to come back to the council at a later date and ask for a subsidy should they determine that they actually do need it. At that time, the council can make an in-depth study of the operations of those enterprises as my budget calls for the providing of monthly financial statements of their operations. In other words, it should come as no surprise to the council if any one of those organizations approaches us because we have been following their operations closely. Do I need to get more time?
Councilmember Matthews.
I'd like to give Councilmember McGuire my time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
McGuire.
The third thing this budget does is reduce the amount of the Metro schools increase by $3.5 million, giving them right at $42.5 million of new funding. In my opinion, it became clear through our budget hearing process with Metro Nashville Schools that there were perhaps ways that the schools could alter their budget while still being able to maintain the quality of education they have been providing to our students. While MNPS has full discretion regarding how they will absorb my $3.5 million in reduction, I am supremely confident that the absorption can occur without affecting classroom instruction. Fourth, this budget is setting aside $8.6 million in reserves. It will give us an $8.6 million head start into the next fiscal year, which we know for a fact will have increased obligations over what we have in this fiscal year's budget. My most fervent hope is that this $8.6 million in reserves will ensure that we as a council will not have to ask our citizens for another property tax increase in the next few years. Moreover, it shows the taxpayer we are being fiscally responsible and forward-thinking by putting money away in the event that property appraisals decrease within the next year, which we all hope and pray will not happen. We were asked by the public to run Metro government as they run their households, and indeed, I think we are doing just that as many people across the city put money away for a rainy day. The placement of this money into reserves can also go a long way to increasing our bond rating, which will serve us better. By improving our bond rating, we will in turn be able to borrow capital, like the capital we will borrow to implement the mayor's capital spending plan, at a much cheaper cost to the city. Of course, in the long run, this will allow us to do more of the capital projects we as a city require because we will not be paying as much in debt service on our bonds. Some might raise concerns about the specific nature of some of these reductions that I am proposing. One such concern might be regarding a reduction to the planning department for the purpose of funding the general plan of Nashville. Let me say wholeheartedly that I support the general plan of Nashville, and I believe it will be a wonderful thing for our city. However, I know that the ramping up of the planning process for the general plan will not occur all in this fiscal year. I am positive we can absorb the remainder of getting that planning process off the ground in the next fiscal year. Another reduction that has caused concern is the reduction of the amount set aside for right-of-way maintenance for Public Works. I'm confident that Public Works will still be able to adequately maintain our rights-of-way, especially since my budget also includes additional money to the Sheriff's Office in the form of their collecting the rent on the recent lease agreement they have signed. The Sheriff's Office has been a fantastic partner with Public Works in helping maintain our city's rights-of-way, as well as assisting in other ways, and so I'm confident that the two will continue to work in lockstep to provide these services for our city. Parks is another reduction that was mentioned. However, my proposed reduction of $100,000 from their initial $400,000 request for more lawn maintenance and personnel and equipment would still give them an additional $300,000 towards that need. Lastly, I'm suggesting a little over $200,000 in a reduction from the police department that came in the form of overtime pay for officers working at special events like Titans games. While those officers' participation in those events is no doubt important in terms of public safety, my hope is that the 4% increase in pay that our police, as well as other Metro employees, are receiving in this budget will help offset that need for overtime pay. But if you look at the reductions that I am proposing in this budget, you will note that all departments of Metro are experiencing the pain of budget reductions, including the mayor's office. Everyone in Metro is shouldering some of the load, and to me, that will be one of the unspoken successes of this budget plan. I know that there will be other concerns.
Councilmember Hunt.
Madam President, I yield my time to the chairman, please.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Councilmember
Councilman.
McGuire.
I know that there will be other concerns or criticisms of my budget plan for this coming fiscal year. I can confidently and truthfully say to every one of you tonight and to every member of the public that I did my absolute best to lessen the burden on the taxpayer. Even though that lessening does not come in the form of a tax levy reduction this fiscal year, my sincerest belief is that this plan will benefit the taxpayer both next fiscal year and well into the future. I did my best to make sure the reductions I identified were fair and equitable across Metro, while at the same time preventing any further diminishing of city services that we have unfortunately seen over the past 4 years due to prior departmental cuts. Again, I know many would prefer an outright reduction, and of course all would prefer no tax increase at all. But we have a choice to make as a city. Do Do we go forward or do we regress? This tax increase will ensure that we as a city continue to move forward and continue to hurtle towards our best days. This budget plan will ensure that we stay on the path of progress while at the same time holding to the principles of prudence. In closing, I want to first thank the Vice Mayor for having the confidence in me to lead the Budget and Finance Committee during what we all expected to be a contentious budget year. I'm humbled by her confidence and grateful for her support. I want to sincerely thank every member of the council for your input and hard work during this budget process. I want to thank every member of the Budget and Finance Committee for your participation in not only the budget hearing process, but also for your help and counsel during the past few weeks as I crafted my substitute budget. And speaking of counsel, I want to say a very large thank you to Mr. John Cooper. His advice, guidance, and help to me during this budget process was absolutely invaluable, and he deserves much of the credit for constructing the plan that I offer to you today. I also want to specifically thank my Vice Chairman of the committee, Councilman Matthews, for his great help in helping me put together this budget. I also want to thank Council members Ronnie Stein, Megan Berry, Tim Garrett, Jerry Maynard, and Jason Holloman for your assistance in helping me create this budget and for helping me to communicate its goals to the committee and to the council. So with that, I humbly submit this budget for your approval, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Machine vote, please. Madam Clerk, has everyone voted? Of everyone? Not everyone. Yes, no, or abstain? Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the votes.
31 aye, 9 no, 0 abstentions.
Motion passes. I will now ask Mr. Cooper to read the list of 7 amendments.
Okay, we have 7 amendments that are in your amendments packet on your desk. We will take those in the order that they appear in your packet. The first amendment is sponsored by Councilman Duvall. It is essentially a zero tax increase budget. It would cut $100 million in spending from the budget to avoid any increase in the property tax levy. The amendment first identifies the $8.6 million in cuts from the substitute budget put forth by the chair and approved by the committee, and moves those funds from reserves, just takes the funds out of reserves in order to lower the levy. It would also cut another $91.4 million from the budget. The majority would come from schools, $29,644,000, and the hospital authority, $29,500,000. It would also reduce the subsidy for the Metro Transit Authority by approximately $4.9 million, would delete all discretionary spending from the budget, including the $16 million pay plan for Metro employees, Arts Commission funding, and the elimination of nonprofit grants and other contributions to community agencies. The amendment does not address the budget of the police and fire department. Those are left intact as presented in the mayor's original budget.
You want to go through all 7?
Sure. The second one is sponsored by Councilman Tigard. It is a $23 million reduction, which would amount to a 12.5-cent reduction in the property tax levy. The amendment incorporates the reductions identified by the chair in the substitute budget, but adds back the funds for the police, planning, public works, parks, health department, and public library. The amendment would eliminate the $16.3 million pay plan, which is the 4% raise for Metro employees. In place of that, it would add $5.4 million to be used as a bonus for Metro employees based upon the county of residency, and the formula for that bonus would be determined by the Civil Service Commission and submitted to the council for approval. The amendment reduces funding for the Partnership 2020 program by $100,000 and would reduce the Metro Schools budget by an additional $4 million, which would be a total reduction of $7.5 million. The third amendment would cut approximately $11,400,000 from the budget to result in a 6-cent property tax levy reduction. This includes all of the reductions identified by the chair except for the police and public works department reductions. The amendment would also reduce the Metro Schools budget by another $2.9 million for a total reduction of $6.4 million. The fourth amendment would not result in a change in the tax levy, but would reduce spending by an additional $1 million to put into reserves. This amendment is sponsored by Councilman Claiborne. It would reduce the schools budget by another $500,000 and reduce MTA and the hospital authority by $250,000 each. The Fifth Amendment is sponsored by Councilman Glover. It incorporates all of the reductions identified in the substitute budget by the chair, and instead of putting that money in reserves, it would reduce the levy by 4.5 cents. The Sixth and Seventh Amendments that do not result in any modification of the tax levy. The Sixth Amendment, sponsored by Councilman Tigard, would shift $1,058,800 from the hospital authority and shift $85,400 from the Human Relations Commission to the public library to open all branch public libraries on Fridays. The Seventh Amendment, sponsored by Councilman Mitchell, would shift $28,000 from the Partnership 2020 appropriation to the Election Commission for early voting sites in Bellevue and Green Hills for the August election.
Thank you. We will begin with the First Amendment. Councilmember Deval.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I want to thank John Cooper for his help and his support and the extra effort that he put out to make this possible for us. And John, thank you very much. Second, I want to thank Charlie Tigard and Karen Bennett for bringing this amendment forward in the committee process. I want to thank both of you. You were the only two that stood up in the Budget and Finance Committee and voted for this. And I want you recognized by the people for what you did. I want you to understand that the budget that has been put before us is not a budget.
Councilman, I'm sorry, have you made a motion yet?
Oh, I'm going to move for approval of my amendment.
Okay.
With a slide, with my explanation, please. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll come back to you after I get a committee report.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended disapproval of the amendment, 13 in favor, 2 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Deval.
Thank you, and Madam Chairman, I'm sorry I was out of order. First of all, what we have is before us with the previous bill that I'm trying to amend, the substitute budget is not a budget, in my opinion. What you have is a tax and spend plan, and that's what's before us, and that's what the people of this county are opposing. When I first got involved with this and started opposing this, I was opposing it on behalf of the people of Council District 33, and it kind of mushroomed into Southeast Davidson County, and somehow I ended up being the point person regarding most of the folks in Davidson County as they've continually reached out to me with various emails and telephone calls, and I think many of you have had your mailboxes stuffed as well. The people of Davidson County overwhelmingly oppose this bill. This amendment that I'm offering has nothing to do with politics. There's nothing personal about this. It's the right thing to do. The people have spoken, and we are elected to represent we the people, and we should listen to the people that elected us. And so I stand here before you asking you to pass my amendment to the substitute. In my opinion, if we don't stop the spending now, we're headed for a train wreck as we go forward. We've got much, much more spending planned in the near future. Our debt service goes up considerably each year
as we go forward? And when does it stop? When do we draw a line in the sand? When do we build a wall and say enough is enough? We're not going to spend anymore. We're going to start cleaning our house up. It's kind of what I allude to a budget for your home. You can go out and you can take your food budget and spend it and go to the movies and do without the food. Or you can do what most families do, and that's buy the food, come home, and sit down in front of the television and watch a DVD movie or watch TV. And this is where we are. This city has spent itself to a point that it is reaching a situation where it is no longer competitive with the surrounding counties. So I'm going to ask again for all of you to seriously consider this amendment and to pass this amendment with 21 votes. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. This is not a joke. It's not about politics. It's about what's right. Thank you from We the People.
Councilmember Stein. We cannot have these outbursts. If we continue to do this, we will clear the chamber. Councilmember Stein.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. And at this point, I'm not going to address the substitute, but address this particular amendment. I would say, with respect to my thoughtful colleague, who I certainly believe in his sincerity, to use his analogy, we can't foresee the future to know if the train wreck is coming down the road. But if we pass this amendment, the train wreck will be tonight. And the train wreck will be July 1. Clearly, this threatens how our government operates, and it is at this particular point in time, on almost any level, which is pointed out by the amendments that are to come, that I think a majority of this council in some form or fashion realize that there's a need for increased revenue, and to not have any, indeed, imperils the level of service and the quality of this government at this point in time. And I would ask everyone to vote against this amendment.
Councilmember Holloman.
I don't want to belabor this point, but I do think it needs to be made, and I have a lot of respect for Councilman Duvall, and I wish that where we could be and be fiscally responsible would be to vote for this amendment. I don't want to see us raise the property tax levy, but to follow up on one of the analogies he gave, it was about we make choices, and one of the choices we make is whether or not we pay for the trip to the movies or we pay for food. And I would equate food and medicine, and there are many people that struggle with that choice all the time, and I respect that. But one of the things that you would cut in this proposed budget is all of the subsidy to our indigent care program in Nashville. And I don't think that's okay. I think that we have a responsibility to provide health care to those that cannot afford it. And if we voted for this budget, we wouldn't be doing that in Davidson County. And I don't think that's acceptable, and I hope it's not acceptable to any of us in this chamber to close the doors on providing indigent health care. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Opposed? Do I have 5 requests? Machine vote. Everyone please vote yes, no, or abstention. Madam Clerk, has everyone voted? Please close the machine and tally the vote.
7 aye, 33 no, 0 abstentions.
The amendment fails. We'll go to amendment number 2. I believe it is yours, Councilman Tygart.
Thank you. Committee report, please.
Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to disapprove, 14-4, 2 against.
I would move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And since you weren't here yesterday and you were so anxious.
I saw it on television. I did. I saw the prop.
Did you skip the commercials?
I muted a lot.
Thank you.
You started it.
And I appreciate that because this has been a time process, and I want to thank the chair for his hard work and effort. I think many parts of his budget, certainly the area of the farmers market, municipal auditorium, fairgrounds, is a very thoughtful approach to send a message that we've got a problem. And but I am serious about this red flag. Because when you think about we're fixing to tax the residents of Davidson County $100 million, but the statement's made that we better put some aside because we've still got problems, is a very telling statement. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. My good friend to the left mentioned my college background, and I hadn't even thought about this when I made the choice to major in economics and business administration at Vanderbilt. And I really never thought that I would use some of that Econ 101, the supply and demand curve. But basically, you learn in those preliminary classes that at some point when you're trying to optimize revenue, if you go up too high, you have a negative impact. And as Councilman McGuire talked about and had done his research on Brentwood home median prices, that is absolutely true. But what was not said there is look at what has happened to our businesses that are on the perimeter of this county and the choices that have been made as they skip over the Davidson County line and head to Rutherford and to Wilson and to Cheatham and to Sumner and all the surrounding counties. And I think there is a direct correlation between tax rates and the burden of regulation that we place on our businesses and the possibility, the very real possibility of hurting our business tax base. This budget has some red flags that should concern us. And let me just start with the first one, and that has to do with $10 million plus of savings. And it's going to be said that this is on the back of our hardworking employees of Metro government. And I respect our employees. They came forward in trying times. They've been asked to do more with less. But folks, when we talk about setting money aside this year, can we really afford $16.3 million of pay raises across the board in a time when so many of our citizens are suffering and haven't recovered yet from flood and recession? So the compromise to me was a one-time bonus that does not place us under the responsibility next year and the year after and the year after and the year after for $16.3 million of pay raises, but instead offered a tiered plan to give our employees a hard-earned bonus. Also factoring in that none of the surrounding counties, Goodlettsville may be the exception, but as I've followed what's happened with the property tax debate in our surrounding counties, none of the surrounding counties are raising that property tax, and so we're creating more distance between us.
Councilmember Evans?
Can I yield my time to Councilman Tiger, please?
Yes, you may, Councilman Tiger.
Thank you so much, Council Lady Evans. So a tiered plan that would give a higher bonus to Davidson County residents who are going to be asked to bear the burden of still a 41-cent property tax hike that I'm not proud of, but I'm trying to put money back in the hands of our citizens. And it may be just $1 or $2, but when we start talking about 12 cents, we're talking about bigger dollars, and especially to the people who can least afford it. Let me share with you some of the other red flags that I see. We're not addressing our pension and insurance benefits, or haven't in the past. Maybe we are in the upcoming here. But we all know that one of the big elephants in the room are our pension and insurance benefits of Metro government are rising far faster than the growth of revenue. What have we done as a body, for those of us that were here for the last 4 years? I would ask, what have we done as a body to rein in these costs? What have we done in the last 4 years, 5 years, to make Metro government run more efficiently, to modernize our ITS. Look at our court system. We sat here and heard from the Beer Board, and there's 16 files of paper forms. Our transportation and licensing. If we were really serious about running this government more efficiently, and I'm at the top of the list, I apologize because I have not pounded upon this fact that we have got to save labor cost and modernize and run more efficiently. Even our schools, to some extent, have some issues with IT and their paperwork. Passing this and not lowering the levy will make us the second council in over 50 years. Every other property tax increase approved by a mayor has been reduced as this body has looked for cuts. But we'll go on record as the second council in 50-plus years that have not reduced the tax levy on our citizens. That's something I can't be proud of. Setting aside money for reserve is a great idea, but not at the expense of taking it out of the pockets of our citizens who need it the most. I relied on the former Budget and Finance Chair of the school board to provide me with data because we've harped upon we did not want to do anything as a body to affect public safety and the education of our children. So I said, please tell me where the level of cuts in the school from the most qualified person that I know in this room to give unbiased advice, who has studied that issue for years, to identify the extra $4 million of cuts that we will go on record and show where those cuts can be made that don't impact the classroom. So my goal in this budget was to lessen the impact on our citizens while still maintaining a level of service in public safety, education, health, and all of those factors that are important to us as a community, while still realizing. I'm going to close, and I may need just a few more seconds, Vice Mayor, so I'll pause here in a second, and maybe somebody will give me a minute more.
Councilmember Garrett.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman
You're not
Tyler.
all that bad. Even if you are, I don't know what you're drinking there, but you can't. But no, knowing Tim, I don't mean to apply that. He's certainly not.
Councilman, your
okay, thank you.
clock's running.
All right. If you can't have a little fun during this, it'll drive you crazy, though. Let me share with you all. I want to make sure this body understands the dilemma we find ourselves in. Our debt service, which is the biggest elephant in the room, our debt service this year, not counting district energy system, water and sewer, and some of those other revenue producing that stand on themselves, but just the outstanding revenue bonds this year is $127.7 million. Now that's funding our schools and parks and police precincts and those buildings that we need to operate our government in. But guess what that number goes to next year? $176.1 million. 176.1. So if you don't think that we better start cutting government and making sure that our business tax base and our homes are selling and our homes are filled and our property values are high, that same number in 2017, 4 years from now, is $189.9 million. Now, we're going to have some terrific growth and development to handle this. So that's why I turn to this red flag, saying that we as a council and everything that we do from this day forward, whether we agree with it or disagree with it, we better be looking to produce revenue, hopefully from businesses and new growth and development, and not on the backs of our taxpayers, and cut our expenses, because the tougher days are ahead. I would ask for your support of this amendment.
Councilmember Weiner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is the bonus pay plan as presented in this amendment legal, John?
Well, the only thing that the amendment does is delete the pay plan addition that would have provided the raises, and then take $5.4 million and put it into two reserve accounts, one in GSD and one in USD, for pay a bonus for employees based upon residency. The Civil Service Commission would be tasked with coming up with a formula that, working with Metro Legal to ensure that it's legal before submitting it to the council for approval. So as yet, there's really no plan, because it has to originate with the Civil Service Commission.
Councilmember Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've got a couple of points. I appreciate you bringing this forward, Charlie. We've got a choice here. This is a question of whether we're going to keep reserves in the city's bank account or reserves in our people's bank account. And many of them don't have reserves, so it's coming out of their pocket. It's coming off their table. It's coming out of their daily expenses to cover gas. It's a question of whether we're going to put $8.5 million in reserves for the city versus commit this city to another $16 million every year. So that $8.5 million that we're saving under the proposed budget of the finance chair, and I appreciate his efforts, is half of what we've committed the city to this year and next year and the year after that. So it barely covers our needs. Our debt service is going up tremendously. We have debt up to our ears. I'd like to have it back up to my waist, but right now we're up to our ears in debt, and it's going to continue to go up. The fact is, the budget chairman's right. We have some difficult times coming up. We have a reappraisal coming up next year, and property values across the board are down in many districts, which will require additional increase next year should those averages across the county not be up. And so we have to do everything we can to buffer the residents of this county and honor the wishes of all of them. The fact is, the meeting I had Saturday, I have Metro school teachers that said they don't agree with increasing the salary to $40,000 a year for starting teachers. The fact is, the data we received yesterday after our budget hearing started indicates that a 4% raise, which we've offered to cities or to city employees, would put us in the number 10 across the state. So for $1,400, we're moving from 30 to 10, and for another $3,600, we would move from 10 to 3. Is that a wise use of our money this year with the school budget? I don't think it is. My wife is a school teacher. I have 3 children in Metro schools. I support them, but we have to be fiscally responsible. This amendment is a response, a reasonable response, to come up with a middle ground, to honor the wishes of the residents across this city. And I can tell you, I've kept up with the emails, and as of about 3 o'clock today, there were more people supported having chickens in our backyards than support this budget bill. More people supported having chickens in our backyard than support this budget proposal that have communicated with us. I ask you to vote in support of this amendment. It moves us forward at a pace we can sustain in a reasonable manner. Thank you for your time.
Councilmember Todd.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I rise tonight in support of Councilman Tygert's amendment to the budget. Let me begin by saying that I'm a big supporter of Mayor Carl Dean, and I believe that he has Nashville on the right track as a city. I cannot think of any other city in the country where I would rather live. But I also want to thank Councilman Tygert and Councilman Steve Glover for the work they did in holding the various publicized discussion meetings and turning over each and every rock and analyzing every item in the budget to see where it is possible to make cuts. It's never popular to go against the mayor's office, so I want to thank them for having the courage to ask the difficult questions. 2 weeks ago, we sat in here and we listened to our constituents tell us that they did not want a tax increase. Not now, during a time when we were just coming out of a recession. Unfortunately, as we discovered in our meetings where we took the budget apart, we have to raise taxes at this time. The only question tonight seems to be how much. There's a time for Metro Council members to lead and not always just listen to our constituents. It's never popular to raise taxes, but if we didn't lead and collect taxes, there wouldn't be any money for infrastructure in schools, safety and protection. There wouldn't be any money for the arts. But there's also a time for us on the Metro Council to listen to our constituents. And our constituents are telling us in this case, overwhelmingly, they do not want a tax increase at this time. While the Taggart Amendment is not perfect, and there are things I would change with it, it, at a minimum, does send a message to our constituents that we're listening to them. It cuts the proposed increase from 53 cents down to about 40 cents. When it comes to our country's housing market, we may very well be living in a new normal. We may never again see the housing prices that we saw back in 2005 and 2006. I know we have not had a formal tax increase under this administration, but almost everyone in my district saw their property taxes go up significantly 3 years ago when we had the property tax reassessment. I've heard from many Nashvillians over the last several weeks who could not sell their homes for anything close to what they're currently appraised for. And there are legitimate fears and concerns throughout the county that property tax rates may go up again next year if the new reappraisals properly reduce the value of so many of these homes. Simply stated, what this amendment is asking is for government to get by with a little bit less, just like most of the families in Davidson County we have recently heard from have had to do. So, should we lead our constituents like we were elected to do, or should we simply listen to our constituents? I think we can and must do both. Fellow council members, I ask you to vote with me tonight and give the mayor substantially what he's asked for, but at the same time, make a small compromise to show our constituents that we're listening to them. Thank you.
Councilmember Bennett.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I rarely stand up and speak. I usually let the others do most of the talking, but tonight I feel an urge to stand up and speak on something that's very important to me. I respect our mayor, and I respect that he loves these citizens and he wants to do what's best. Every person in this room, we were driven to do what's best for our constituents. But I disagree in the process and how to get there. Art Laffer, the economist, said a great thing, that a city cannot tax itself into prosperity. And I fear that we are pushing that limit, that we are reaching beyond what we should for our constituents. I'm a small business owner. I have struggled over the last couple of years. It's not easy. And for those of you that have businesses, I know you understand how hard it is. I mean, Mr. Cass knows, he put it in the Tennessee, and I was behind on my property taxes for 2 months. That's something I just don't do. I pay my bills. But it has been very, very hard. With my business, I've added other services. I'm a real estate appraiser, so I've added other services. I'm doing property management now. And I'm not pushing for work, by the way. But I did receive a call yesterday from one of my clients who lives out of state. And they have put their properties on the market because of this. So I really see it. It's just not someone sending me an email saying, hey, you know, we can move out of the county. They really can, and they actually are. So I find that very, very disturbing. Our employees are our biggest assets. So I feel strongly that if we spend any money, I would prefer to give it to the employees. We've got a great city, we've got beautiful buildings, we've got great parks, but the employees are what's most important. Councilman Taggart's proposal is the most similar to what I feel like would work in this situation, and it just really is. I cannot vote for something that I feel like puts the burden on the backs of the taxpayers in District 8 and in Nashville. District 8 has a lot of seniors in that district, and I've had so many phone calls. I've had 9 folks in my district contact me for this budget, and they 300 plus against, whether it's in the grocery store, by phone, or by email. I just cannot vote
to put any more burden on my constituents. And I'm going to ask you to vote for Councilman Taggart's proposal. Thank you.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I have served now for 2 terms and a little part of a third with Councilman Taggart, and I believe this is the first time that I've gotten up and agreed with you on a budget, but I find myself in agreement with Councilman Taggart. And Sean, thank you for all the hard work you did. You did a great job. I didn't vote against your substitute because of the 53 cents. I voted against it because of the USD GSD disparity, which I'll get to later. The 41 cents is a reasonable number. 53 cents is probably not going to last till the next reappraisal in 2017. I know we hope it will. I know we pray it will. But with $100 million more in debt service to deal with, it probably won't. And hope is not a plan. So we're probably going to come back to this place here maybe the summer of 14, 15. What else is going on 15? And that's going to be some even tougher choices than we have today. Since we're coming back anyway, I think that's inevitable. Councilman Taggart's proposal lowers the 41 cents, maybe makes us think about what we're doing and how we're running our government. What efficiencies do we need? What modernization do we need? You know, we found out during budget hearings that Nancy Whittemore General Services maintains the buildings in this government, this side of the government, for $4.67 a square foot. Over at schools, where they have full-time carpenters and plumbers, it's $5.69 a foot. Nancy Whittemore has done, under the guidance of the general government, she has done a fabulous job of modernizing part of our government. And every single department needs to do the same thing. And we're not. And the best way to do that is to make resources a little scarcer. 41 cents means a little less for everybody than 53 cents. The paradigm for government has shifted, and it has shifted permanently. We are not going back to 2006 or 7 anytime soon. The economy is not getting better in the way that you would like it to. We restructured the debt in 2010 because we thought things will get better, the economy will turn around. Well, it's going to be very different. It's going to present great opportunities for this city. It's going to be a wonderful time, I'm sure, but it is going to be different, and it is not going, you're not going to be able to depend on the things you've been able to depend on for the last 10 years. It's not a bad thing, it's just a different thing. We can move Nashville forward. My children are the 5th generation to be born in this city. We've been doing nothing, I think, but working hard to move this city forward. But I don't think you need to do it with 53 cents. I think you can move forward very nicely with 41. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Scott Davis.
Previous question, please.
We have a motion. Is there a second? All in favor of previous question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question passes. We're back to the motion to approve the amendment. We will have a machine vote. I need everyone voting. Okay, Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
11 aye, 29 no, 0 abstentions.
The motion fails. We're on the next amendment, and I believe that is Councilman Claiborne's. Councilman Bedney, sorry.
We kind of look alike. It's okay.
Sorry, I need to do something. Councilman Bedney.
So I want to make a motion, and I guess we need a committee report.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to disapprove, 13 for, 2 against, 1 not voting.
Thank you. Councilmember Bedney.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this is my first one. I come from a different place. I'm actually very optimistic about the future. I think a lot of the conversation has been channeling some national conversation about the future. And the way I see it, I agree with the mayor that our best years are ahead of us. And that is why the only information we have that we know is what's going on with the economy right now. I just happen to believe that the future is going to get better. And so that's why when I was looking through the budget, I went to the mayor's budget and I went to the council budgets and hearings, and it became apparent to me that there were some issues, some of the items on the budget that we could delay a couple of years and just work on the things that we need immediately. And so in looking at the budget, in my humble opinion, the budget that we did with John Cooper, I mean, that he helped me craft, kind of expresses that. When I went to talk to him, I asked him, is there any way that we can come up with a legislation that will kind of have a two-tier, where we can approve something that will part of it will kick in now and part of it will kick in 2 years, and that is not possible. So the only way to do that was to propose this budget today. I want to move Nashville forward. I think everything that I left in the budget will help with that. I think the things that I took out of the budget won't stop the Nashville from moving forward. And I'm just asking that we consider having this conversation again in a couple of years and see if we really need to revise it again, or hopefully the revenue that Nashville will create with the sales tax will pick up the slack. So I'm asking for your support on my amendment.
We have a motion and a second. We're going to have a machine vote. I need everyone voting. Madam Clerk?
7 aye, 32 no, 0 abstentions.
The motion fails. Next is Councilmember Claiborne.
I would like to ask for the committee report, please.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second, and the committee report, Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe he asked for a committee report. Budget and Finance voted to disapprove, 14-4, 2 against.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm simply asking for an additional $1 million in reduced spending. This does not change the substitute budget other than to take from the 3 largest areas that is represented in our budget, the schools, MTA, and it also adds in the hospital authority. As Council Lady Evans just pointed out, the inability of the school's maintenance to work as effectively as the Metro General Services Department. She also, not long ago, asked for the IT department in Metro to give her a plan for how they would administer the $700,000 or so that they're asking for their IT department, and how they would replace on schedule different pieces of equipment, buy software, and so on. And her response was that they didn't have such a plan, that the plan was based on basically instructional leadership, which I read to say that whoever wants something done at a certain point in time, then that's what they do. There is no plan, and that's what was conveyed. And so I think across the board, there is room for some additional reduction. I think many of you in this body have learned for the first time that by state law, we can't give the school system any less dollars in the next budget than we have given them in the previous budget. So whatever we begin with this year, that's the beginning point next year, unless the student population goes down. The only way that we have to try to bring any kind of control to that is in the operational side. And so I think an additional $500,000 is certainly appropriate there. MTA, I'm asking to take another $250 from them, and I'm adding the hospital authority in. You know, we're taking the total subsidy from the state fair, from the municipal auditorium, and from the farmers market. When you look at the cuts, almost every department and agency within Metro is having to bear part of the burden. We're giving to Metro General Hospital $47 million in subsidies. $250,000 is a drop in the bucket, but it does give them skin in the game. It puts them on notice that they have to also share part of the burden that everybody else is. So with the addition of these three, that gives an additional $1 million to add. That brings to $9.6 million that would be going into reserve. And to Councilman Tygard's point, we're not just putting this in escrow for the future. We are planning for a need that we know is coming within a couple of years. And hopefully this will keep us from being back here, as Council Lady Evans alluded to, within 2 years asking for more, if we plan in advance for what we know is ahead of us. So I'm asking you to support this. Thank you.
Councilmember Weiner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I don't usually stand up and speak, but this has been especially frustrating to me. I live in Bellevue, where we really were hurt by the flooding, and I've worn John out, bless his heart, asking questions and trying to put all this in perspective because it's my first budget. Having said that, there was one issue that was the line in the sand for me, and being in the medical community and seeing the impact of our healthcare system on those that don't have health care, and knowing the importance of what our Metro hospital system affords us, I had to draw the line in the sand there. And so I can't take money away from a hospital authority that is already losing money because reimbursements have dropped in the bucket. And I can't take money away from the indigent, and I can't take money away from the people that we're serving who can't or won't be served by the for-profit hospitals. And so for that reason, I can't support this amendment. Thank you.
Councilmember Stanley.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak at this time. I want to thank Mr. Cooper for the legal advice you've given to the Metro Council at this time. I think we've run around with like chickens with their heads cut off, because we've had people from all throughout Davidson County contacting us and letting us know that they are against this property tax increase. But I think it's important to understand that Metro Nashville is a public municipality, and as that, it is operating in a free market economy. And we are subjected, all of our departments are subjected to having money yearly, annually, to operate their budgets. And I appreciate Mayor Dean and his opportunity to meet with these different department heads and voice their position regarding their budgets. But I really feel like this 53-cent property tax increase is much higher than what I would look for. Because if anything, we've run into a bad situation, economic situation, our nation has. And it's been 5 years almost that we've been in this. I'll let everyone know that I'm a licensed teacher. I'm a licensed history teacher. But I do know that school teachers do not look simply upon annual salary to apply to a school system. They look upon school environment, classroom environment. They look upon community support, administrative support, Board of Education support, system support. And they also look upon the direction that the Board of Education is going. I have some concerns about the direction that this Board of Education is going at this time. Their embracement of charter schools is irresponsible. I think that's irresponsible. I'd like to see Metro Nashville, our council, the elected body, place this money, this revenue that's going to be generated by this property tax increase back into the general school systems, schools serving our system. Because the students, the vast majority of the 88,000 school students in our system go to these general schools. That is elementary, middle, and high schools. They do not go to magnet schools. They do not go to Montessori schools, anything like that. I think this is just one thing. I was in support of Councilman Tygard's amendment. I'm going to be in support of every amendment to this because I'd like for all of us to look considerably upon this budget and work with the mayor and with each other to make sure that if we're going to raise property taxes for the citizens of metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County, we will definitely do that responsibly. I don't think it's going to be responsible on our part to all of a sudden raise 53 cents property tax increase per $100 of assessed value. So with that, I would ask for your approval.
Councilmember Matthews?
Previous question.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We'll have a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the votes.
7 aye, 32 no, 0 abstentions.
The motion on the amendment fails. Next is Councilmember Glover's amendment.
Move approval and committee reports.
Councilmember McGuire.
Budget and Finance voted to disapprove, 12-4, 2 against, 2 not voting.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you for all of the work that's gone on in this budget. This has been stressful for every one of us. I mean, I don't think there's one person that's sitting here that hasn't wrestled with this. My amendment, though, I bring my amendment because I'm very concerned about our debt service as we go forward. There's no guessing about that. Every way we look at the number, everything we study on this says we have some serious issues before us. But philosophically, I have a problem when we, the government, I don't care if it's $1, I don't care if it's $2, it's $3 a month, whatever. Philosophically, I have a problem when I say we can manage your money better than you can. So we're going to take it out of your pocket and put it in ours. Philosophical. I have no doubt that debt service is going to be an item that will cause us lots of heartburn as we go forward, simply because it will require more money coming out of somewhere to pay that debt service. I don't know what that is. I would hope as soon as we finish the process here, we go to work on that because it is a serious issue. It's very serious. So with that in mind, again, the only thing I believe is that if we can find a reduction, and obviously we have found a reduction, there's no cuts, but we found a reduction, then we let the people keep their money, and then we come back to do the hard lifting on figuring out where to make the cuts as we go forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Duvall.
I was going to yield more time to Steve if you needed it.
I think he finished. We'll have a machine vote, please. Everyone, please vote. Madam Clerk, please tally the vote.
11 aye, 29 no, 0 abstentions.
Motion on the amendment fails. I believe we have one more, and that is Councilman Tygart. Two more. You're right, Councilman Mitchell, sorry. Councilmember McGuire. Committee report.
Budget and Finance voted to disapprove, 12-4, 1 against, 3 not voting.
Thank you, Councilman Tiger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move approval with a brief explanation.
We have a motion and a second.
Thank you. This amendment shifts some money from General Hospital and the Human Relations Commission to the Metro Public Library System to operate every public library on Fridays. It is amazing to me two things. Number one, that we're going to increase the tax burden on our citizens by $100 million, and we can build these beautiful libraries, and we can have students out of school this summer on Fridays that can't go to summer reading programs or to check out a book. Now, some will say that picking General Hospital and the Human Relations Commission is a very unwise move. Probably is. But I did that for two reasons, council members. Number one is, we have to begin having the discussion, like it or not. General Hospital is needed. It provides valuable services, but its business plan is simply not working. Is there a better way to administer indigent health care in our community? When Mayor Bredesen proposed the merger in 1991, the hospital subsidy was $10 million. Less than 20 years later, the hospital subsidy is $42 million, with untold millions of dollars of forgave debt. So I'm not picking on General Hospital. I want General Hospital to succeed. But until we do something as a community and as a body to start the discussion about this, I would submit to you that if this was any other agency requiring a $42 million subsidy, heck, we're having the discussion on a $200,000 subsidy for healthy food. Fresh vegetables, that's important. 200,000 in losses is important. So the majority of this to open library, I said, comes from General. The second area is the human relations. This is an unfilled position. Certainly no one accepts discrimination in our community. But if there was not a state human rights commission with investigative powers, or if there was not a federal EEOC with investigative powers, guess what, folks? Our Human Relations Commission refers all the matters that require serious investigation to one of those two agencies because they don't have that authority. So I'm not proposing to shut down the Human Relations Commission. I'm proposing that we don't fill an unfilled position, that we still allow that commission to promote the diversity and the anti-discrimination and all the good work that it does. And those two areas would open our public libraries for our seniors and our students on Friday. Thank you.
Councilmember Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. As I said earlier this evening, Charlie and I don't agree on a whole lot, and this is one of them. And I appreciate Councilman Tiger. He and I met back in 2003. He remembers that. And I respect him a great deal. I told him to his face I was disappointed that he picked the Human Relations Commission and the Hospital Authority for these particular cuts. And my disappointment is because if you look at the Human Relations Commission, it deals with protecting and also promoting diversity, tolerance. It deals with being proactive and making this city a great city for all Nashvillians. It also deals with the protection of women, minorities, and those who don't have a voice. When you say, I am not for diminishing their ability to do their job, but then you reduce their staff from 3 to 2, that's exactly what you're doing. If you don't have the staff and the resources, they cannot execute. They cannot enforce, and they definitely cannot engage in a affirmative way of saying we want to promote diversity in this great city. So I therefore would ask you that you vote because the Human Relations Commission is very necessary. It does functions different from the state level and different from the federal level. It is very unique. In fact, it has a new executive director. They have a new plan of action. They're doing quite well. Let's give them the opportunity to succeed. Finally, let me get in my last minute to talk about the hospital authority. You know, the hospital authority has been a piñata over the last 5 years that's been punched by many people in this council. And for the like of, I could not understand until I realized that a lot of people in this council and over the past 4 years don't even know where General Hospital is. They've never been there. They don't know what services to provide. So it's easy to punch the hospital because you've never been there. You've never been to Bordeaux, you've never been to Knowles. Let me tell you about General Hospital. It is our hospital. It is our county hospital. This is our hospital. It's not someone else's hospital. It's ours. Not only does it provide indigent care, but let me tell you that before TennCare was changed under Governor Bredesen, almost everybody could qualify for TennCare. And when you had more people on TennCare, General Hospital was flush. You know why? Because people had coverage. As we began to narrow and limit the people who could qualify for TennCare, what we have happened is that many people who once qualified for TennCare no longer qualify for TennCare, so that we saw our uncompensated care go from 60 million to 70 million to 85 million, and next year we're projecting $95 million in uncompensated care. My colleague, Councilman Tiger, said that this business model doesn't work. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. There's not one public safety net hospital in the country that runs a surplus. Not one. You know why? Because their mission is to provide care for those who can't pay. So we will never have a situation where General Hospital will have a surplus. What we can do is work with the hospital authority, work with the mayor's office, work with the council to generate new revenues. Look at our IOD program. Look at the state employees with an incentive plan. Look at other ways to generate revenue for General Hospital, which we can. Because I want to reduce the subsidy as well, but I'm not going to cripple it. We have reduced the subsidy for Metro General Hospital over the last few years. They've done more with less, but guess what? They're more efficient now than they've ever been. I mean, I'm not going to put Rich on the spot, but he will tell you they're more efficient now than they've ever been since we got on the council in 2007. I'm proud of that. We may not have always agreed on how to get there, but we've gotten there. And so I would hope that you vote no on this. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Perdue. Councilmember Evans.
Thank you. Charlie, that lasted a few minutes. I'm actually going to oppose this too because we've talked about the hospital authority, but we don't often talk about the fact that General Hospital is Meharry Medical College's teaching hospital. If you take away General Hospital, you take away Meharry Medical College. And the Meharry Medical College's history and contribution to the culture of this city and this nation is significant. And as we go through this discussion, and it's one we need to have, we have an obligation to Meharry, and one that we should weigh heavy on our hearts and our minds as we discuss these things. It's been there well over 100 years. It needs to be there for another 100 years or more.
Councilmember Hunt.
Call for the question, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question passes. We'll have a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
3 aye, 37 no, 0 abstentions.
The motion on the amendment fails. Next, we have Councilman Mitchell's amendment.
Yeah, I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to disapprove 12-4, 3 against, 1 not voting.
Thank you, Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, today, we've got a $1.7 billion budget before us. Over $750 million of that budget is the amount of money that no one in this room has any control over. That's the school board. I've heard several members of this body stand up tonight and talk about this, how much it costs to maintain items, buildings, or square footage at buildings at the school system. I've heard other members talk about, the raising of the teacher salaries to third in the state. I've heard several of you talk about, other aspects of the school board's budget, but none of us in here can do a thing about it. I'm asking for a small amount of money to give the people of Davidson County a better opportunity to get more involved. We've all had thousands of emails talking about, what we needed to do in this budget. If you do this, the ballot box is going to remind you. Well, folks, like I said, 44% of this budget we have no power over. So what our election commission has chosen to do is this August, when we have school board elections, we're going to narrow down the early voting sites where there's less access. We've heard about, involvement of women and minorities and other thing in a previous amendment. Well, I think their opportunity to get to vote, man, woman, minorities, everyone should be able to go to the ballot box and vote. So you have an opportunity tonight, a small amount of money that we're giving to a private organization. There's a lot of other private organizations in Davidson County we would like to give money to, but we're giving this one private organization a subsidy. We've cut out fairgrounds, we've cut out farmers market, we've cut out municipal auditorium. I'm asking for a minute amount of money to give the citizens of Davidson County a better opportunity to have a voice in 44% of this budget that we're discussing here tonight. We've got these school board elections, and the school board district in which I live in has no early voting site. There's going to be no early voting site in August in District 9, probably one of the most highly contested districts in this county. So the people in our area are not going to have the right to, the opportunity for convenience to vote other than on election day. Can they drive downtown to Howard School? Yes. The reality of someone driving from the Cheatham County line or the Williamson County line to Howard School building is unlikely. Let's give them the opportunity to vote so they can have a representative that will go to the school board and say, why do we have a travel agent on staff at the school board? Why do we have a fire extinguisher coordinator on staff at the school system? Why do we have an AED coordinator on staff at the school system? Why don't we have a principal that goes and checks to make sure the AED works? Why don't we have a principal that goes and checks in the building to make sure his fire extinguishers work? So let's give the people of this county an opportunity to vote for 44% of this $1.7 billion budget. It's not everyone in this council chamber's responsibility. It's the school board as well. Let's give the citizens a right to vote.
Councilmember Weiner.
Being the other Bellevue representative, my constituents were quite unhappy with the fact that they didn't have equal access to early voting, even if it shortened early voting, even if it's a week instead of the full 2 weeks, whatever the opportunity is. They certainly have requested that this be approved. Thank you.
Councilmember Scott Davis.
Previous question, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of previous question, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We'll have a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machines and tally the vote.
12 aye, 28 no, 0 abstentions.
Motion fails. Councilmember McGuire, we're back on the bill as substituted.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would humbly submit for approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. I have people in the queue. Are you wanting to speak? Councilmember Berry?
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Chairman McGuire, for all of your leadership through this process. I really appreciate it. I've heard from a lot of folks about this budget, including many both are for and against, and it's hardly novel to say that people don't like taxes or to discover that they share this view with pollsters. The way I see it, though, and I'm going to admit I'm going to oversimplify this a little bit, there are two flavors of opposition to this tax increase. Some simply disdain government and reject all taxes out of hand. They want politicians who are going to pledge never to raise any tax on anything ever. While I don't find a common cause with that view of the role of government, it is a legitimate position. And others express what I like to call measured skepticism. They understand that taxes make it possible to do the important things that we do together as a city and a community. This view doesn't reject all tax increases, nor does it automatically tag government as the source of our problems. The measured skeptic, though, asks an excellent question. If we're taxing ourselves today to be a great city, and if we are this terrific city that civic leaders keep reminding us that we are, then why aren't those taxes enough for tomorrow? If our tax base is expanding and our city is doing okay, then why aren't the ongoing costs of just doing the people's business absorbed by the natural pace of economic growth? Why do we need to raise taxes just to keep going? And it's not only a legitimate question, it's actually an essential question. So let me try to answer it. For openers, it's important to keep in mind that our tax revenues are down. Revenue growth has been flat or declining. Now, some of this may come back as the economy picks up, but it's not the case that our existing tax structure will sustain the things that we rely on tax revenue to accomplish. Over the last decade or so, we've made decisions as a city to make investments in schools, in public safety, public health, infrastructure, arts, and culture that has a lot to do with Nashville's transformation into one of this country's most vibrant mid-sized cities, a place where people want to live, work, and play, and visit. It turns out that doing more and better things as a city, better schools, improved public transportation, safer streets, and vibrant neighborhoods actually means making these kinds of investments. And let me be really clear about this, because it's a crucial point. We are already making these investments, and we have been for some time. Through 3 mayoral administrations now, we have decided as a city to do these things. In recent years, we've managed to hold the line on property taxes. We've benefited from economic growth, we've restructured debt, and we've made significant cuts in our city department budgets. But let's keep in mind that we've also tap danced that bit of tax magic these last few years on the backs of our city employees. Inflation may be low, but it ain't zero, and the cost of things go up, and yet we've sacrificed even modest raises for city's workers as we've funneled money to other places. So the decision in front of us tonight is not whether to expand the reach of government in aggressive new ways. That decision is whether to sustain the investments that we are already making and from what we are already reaping the benefits. It's easy and catchy to say that a decision like this is about Nashville's future. But the message I want to send to those who are skeptical is that it's actually about Nashville's present. It's not just about the city that we hope to become or want to become. It's much more and about the city that we're already becoming. And that's why we're committed to sustaining this. That's why a lot of us believe strongly that the city risks moving backward without an upward adjustment in this tax rate. Look, it doesn't cost more and it doesn't require a tax increase to be an averaged mid-sized city that is satisfied with declining public service, indifferent to public health and public transit, and seeks that quality public education is a luxury that we just won't afford. But to sustain the energy and investment that we already have going for us, the current revenue base simply won't cut it. So I'm voting tonight for this budget. I'm not doing it because I love taxes, but because I love Nashville, and I hope that you too will support it. Thank you.
Councilmember Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Chairlady. This is the 21st budget. This may be the last time that I get an opportunity to vote for or against a tax increase. And I know some of you here are worried about your political life when you have to vote for taxes, or you think you might have to in some form or fashion. And all I can remember is in '83 when I first got here, the night that I got elected, I had an old magistrate hit me on the back and said, "Timmy, just go up there and vote against everything and you'll be there for 25 years. I thought, my goodness, he's probably right, but what would happen after that? I just didn't quite know how to take that. Then the first night I came up here, I remember there was always a group up here of old timers. I guess everybody talked, some charter members, and some of you heard me tell you that you don't get beat for voting for taxes, you get beat on zoning matters. You don't get, that's what, as a district council member, you're more worried about that than anything else. What I found through the years is that there's nobody in this room that has voted for more tax increases, or whether they be property tax. Well, I take that back. There's probably one person, maybe property taxes, but 4 more taxes than I have at either the state level or the county level. There's nobody else in this room that has voted against more property taxes or taxes at the state level or at the county level than I have. Now, whether that says success or not success for me in a political life, this would be the 6th time, and I'm going to be voting for this. That'll be 3 for, 3 against. So where does that put me on the ladder? The public will make up their minds on that. I've had an opportunity to do the things that our chairman has done. I've had an opportunity to introduce amendments to make substitute budgets, which none have passed through the years when they were against what a mayor had proposed. Every single solitary tax increase that's ever been proposed by a mayor has passed. So I guess what I would say is that what I found through the years is that somewhere, sometime along the line, you've got to find something that you're for. It's real easy to be against everything all the time. It's tough. The tough votes comes when you're voting for something. I guess I had one of the old timers that told me, said, Timmy, said, it doesn't take a whole lot of courage to vote no. It takes courage to vote yes. And I will tell you, it sure does sometimes, and this is one of those times. Thank you.
Councilmember Stanley.
Thank you. I just want to voice my appreciation to Chairman McGuire. I appreciate you standing forward and dealing with this entire budget. This has been a very, very strenuous time for all the council members, for the vice mayor, for the mayor, for his administration, for the Metro employees, for everyone associated with Metro Nashville. I appreciate that. This is the 3rd property tax increase that I have supported. And they come under 3 different mayors: Mayor Bredesen, Mayor Purcell, and Mayor Dean. I will support this because this will allow our city to move forward. Just as Mayor Dean and his administration has said, we want our city to move forward. But there are certain allegations, certain things that we can still address as a council, as the legislative body of this city. We can address these issues over this next year, the year after that. We can address these. But in the meantime, I think we should all be proud of being on this Metro Council, just like the mayor should be proud of being the mayor of Metro Nashville. The vice mayor should be proud of being the vice mayor of Metro Nashville. And the citizens should be proud of living in Metro Nashville and Davidson County. I am very thankful for this situation. And I just want to let Mayor Dean and his administration realize that I'm willing to work with them if they're willing to work with me. Thank you.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I'm not going to vote for your substitute, Sean. You've done a great job. And to the mayor's office, actually, I would have voted for the budget you submitted. I don't have a problem with the 53 cents. I don't have a problem raising taxes. And when necessary, so Tea Party, keep me off your mailing list. What I do have a problem with is the USD GSD, and I shared this with you a few weeks ago. few months ago, Councilman Crafton and I annexed a portion of the GSD into the USD. And when we did that, it was $700,000 to the good to Metro government. In other words, the services that we were providing, the GSD, we were already providing them. So when we expanded the services, well, we just got more tax revenue. We didn't get anything on the cost side of the ledger. So changing the mix, I'm sorry, it's grossly unfair to my constituents in the USD that subsidize GSD operations. I think, that's something that needs to be looked at. I'd hoped when we did the annexation that would inspire us to look at it a little bit more. So I'm going to vote no for that technical reason. I also just simply can't endorse the view that putting 1% of our operating budget into our debt service reserve account will somehow lower our debt service and increase our bond rating. Our bond rating is great because of great fiscal management for the last 30 or 40 years, and hopefully it will remain so. So with my apologies and my congratulations to you on a great job, I'm going to vote no for those reasons.
Councilmember Stein.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have been fond of saying jokingly to groups I talk to that the Metro Council should never be judged by the quality of our debate, but rather our end result. Tonight is one of those exceptions. I am proud to be a member of this body tonight and commend those on all sides of this issue for the quality of the discussion we've had here. I rise in support of the substitute budget as adopted by the Budget and Finance Committee. I don't do it with any sense of excitement, and for those that know me know how much I enjoy the budget process because I believe it's the most important thing we do, so I relish it. But there's no excitement here for me. This is not easy, and it's not an easy action to take. Like everyone here, I've heard from hundreds of Nashvillians, many against, but many in support, which hasn't been said tonight. We've heard from a lot of people in this community that support this. Each believes their position is the absolute truth. Then the next caller believes theirs is the only position that should be heard. If we take a stance contrary to any one of those people, we aren't representing them, even if we concur with the next person that's called. The calls, emails, and letters from those sincerely suffering in these hard economic times are literally gut-wrenching. No one involved in this process wants to raise property taxes, but some of us believe that we have to. Each of us is elected as a representative. We do our homework, and through that work, we reach an understanding of the issues and this budget. That's important because we're filled in an environment full of misunderstandings, misrepresentations, and some distortions. The world does not understand the difference between our capital budget and our annual budget and capital expenditures and annual expenditures. They don't understand the difference in the general government and the school board, and they certainly don't understand how the convention center is funded and whether or not that impacts what we're doing here. But our access to the best of information must be weighed with the input from our fellow citizens and our individual beliefs about what constitutes the best community possible. Weighing all that, I support this substitute budget. Over the last few years, we've cut $60 million. We've cut departments significantly. We've restructured our debt. This is the second lowest tax increase in history, the lowest being the 11 cents to get out from under the DSEG plan. After this budget, our rate will still be lower than Knoxville, Chattanooga, Memphis, and our other southern peer cities. This budget has a 4% pay raise for our employees. They haven't had one in 5 years. This is less than 1% for the majority of those extraordinary workers. It maintains our current police and fire staff levels, and that's not insignificant relative to other cities. It continues our progress in building a public transportation system. It funds programs like Limitless Libraries and our after-school programming that really helps our young people. It maintains basic funding levels for current operations. It builds reserves significantly. It raises teacher salaries so we can compete for the best, and it builds sidewalks, improves roads and streets, fixes 10-plus schools, and builds a Bellevue library that's 15 years overdue. I just read that the mayor of Mesa, Arizona said communities had to look into their souls and say, who are we? It's tough when you're forced to make real decisions. This is the ultimate soul-searching real decision we will make. It does determine who we are and who we want to be. For me, this budget represents the strongest chance to maintain what is best about our city, to improve those elements we need and want to change so that Nashville can be the best it can be. Thank you.
Councilmember Pridemore.
Previous question, ma'am.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of previous question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. There will be a machine vote.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you close the machine and tally the vote?
32 aye, 8 no, 0 abstentions.
Motion passes. Next is BL 2012-155, adopts the property tax levy for fiscal year 2012-2013. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to approve 13-4, 1 against, 2 not voting, and I would move approval.
You're moving the
And
substitute?
I'm sorry, I would move the substitute. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second on the substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Councilman McGuire.
Thank you. I would move as substituted.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-157 establishes a program for providing assistance to low-income elderly residents of the Metro government for fiscal year 2012-2013. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All committees having reported, I would move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We need to go back to RS 2012-273. Approves an amendment to the pay plan for the general employees of Metro government. Councilmember McGuire. 70. We can take 73, 74, and 75 together if there's no objection. 274 approves an amendment to the pay plan for the employees of the Metro Fire and Police Departments. 275 approves an amendment to the pay plan for Metro employees of the Board of Health. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to approve all with a vote of 16-4, none against, and I would move their approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. When we adjourn, I need for the Urban Council to meet at the clerk's desk. That would be Councilmember Berry, Councilmember Stein, and Councilmember Maynard. And I just want to personally thank Councilmember McGuire for all the work that he's done. And I want to also express my appreciation for working through the council committee system and the process that we have in place. It does work, and that's why it's there. It has worked for all these years, and I appreciate everyone taking advantage of that process. Is there a motion to adjourn?